Welcome back to Finding Common Ground with Heather and Steve. Heather, would you like to introduce our guest today?
Yes. Today we're going to talk about something that's very close to my heart. We're talking about home care and actually a specific program that we have in New York State called Consumer Directed Personal Attendant Program. I think CDPAP is what I call it. Everything has an acronym these days. And for people who aren't aware, this is a program that lets you not only choose who you want to be your caregiver, but you're involved in training them. And you're really in charge of who's coming in your home and who is supporting you. So for someone like my daughter, this is really nice because when we had an agency that was providing the people, they didn't always line up with how we wanted things done. And some of them, if I'm being honest, I didn't want in my home. They just were not the role model for Devin or somebody that we wanted hanging out at our house. And I'm not picky choosy. I'm really not. But when it comes to helping people and supporting them, CDPAP is a beautiful idea and concept because it gives the person control over the things they need help with the most. So today, I thought a lot of people are talking about CDPAP because in New York State right now, the program is really under scrutiny, under attack, if I'm being honest. There are people who don't understand it. They don't understand why we need it, and they think that we're using it too much. So today's our chance to kind of break those misconceptions and dispel them a little bit. And the perfect person is here today with us because he has a different angle on it. I think that a lot of people assume that if you're home and you have a disability, that you aren't a contributing member of society. And Jose's going to show us that that's just not the truth. And I'm excited to hear and share his story with all of you because I think that it will give you a new perspective and we can look at this conversation in a different way. So Jose, thanks for joining us. Why don't you let our audience know where you're coming from?
I am coming from New York City, specifically in the Bronx, not far from the New York Yankees. Go Yankees.
Woo! Perfect. So we talked briefly. Steve and I like to get to know our guests a little bit ahead of time. But what I would love for you to do is just tell people why you ended up needing home care, that it wasn't something you've always needed, and a little bit about your backstory.
So yes, thank you. I wasn't born with a disability. I acquired my disability through a spinal cord injury. So at the tender age of barely 15, I was about 14, about a few months away from my 15th birthday. A group of friends decided to go to the beach. It was a nice, hot spring day. It wasn't quite summer. Mm-hmm. After school, we went to the beach, and I ran in a little too overexcited, jumped in the wrong way, and basically shattered the C5 vertebrae in my neck. That left me paralyzed from basically my neck down. I can't feel anything from basically my collar down. It's considered a neck injury because you're basically breaking one of the vertebrae in your neck. I have zero sensation below the level of injury. I can't move my legs, and as folks can see, I have very limited movement in my hands. So I've utilized home care services, traditional at first, ever since I was 15 years old.
Could you give people some perspective on what a traditional home care agency looks like and why maybe that's not as viable of a solution as it used to be?
Yes. So traditional home care is a person that goes through a specific type of training. They go take their personal care attendant training or HHA, which is a home health aid training. They come in with strict guidelines on how to take care of you. They can't administer medication. They can't help with bowel or bladder. They can't dress wounds. So for someone like me with high level needs, I need bowel bladder care. I can't administer my own medication, or at least, put it together. They can hand it to me in my hand, but I can't get it out of the bottle. I can't do my bowel program. I have a wound right now, unfortunately, on my heel. Fortunately, it's healing, and they can do that. A traditional home care worker, they're not allowed to do that. So the CDPAP program allows me to be able to train a personal assistant, what we call them. They do personal care, but it's labeled as a personal assistant, and it allows them to do things outside of the scope of traditional home care.
Which is so important, because when you think of somebody who qualifies for home care, most of these people who are in this group, right, they're going to need medication and they're going to need support. And it almost seems silly that we have all these different kinds of people who support you. There's, for our audience, you may have heard of DSPs, direct support professionals. There's CNAs if you're in long-term care or at the hospital. There's the home health aides, like you were talking about, and PCAs. And we have all these different kinds of people who are hired to support us. But when it boils down to it, we didn't hire them. We didn't train them. And there was something you said when we first met that really stuck with me, because if you get too close, and I'm doing air quotes if you're just listening, that's actually not allowed. They're not allowed to have a relationship with you, which is ridiculous, because in my daughter's case, she's 17. She has life-threatening seizures and a motor delay. And so they're with us all the time. They go shopping with her. They go to the movies with her, wherever she wants to go. And she does consider them friends. And sometimes there are family and friends filling this role for us. And that's how this works, because we're able to pick the people who are already close to us and care about us. Now, Devin has probably 8 caregivers right now, and we didn't know all of them to begin with. But we met them through our other people who are helping us, right? Like Linda will say, oh, I know somebody. And Stephanie's like, I have a friend. And so it's like we're building our own team, and we can have some trust in the people who are coming in. And I think for a lot of people, that makes sense. Steve, have any of the people any of the kids that come through your house qualified for home care or required anything like that?
Not sure on the foster care side, but before we did foster care, we did family care for New York State. And we literally had several individuals. One had dementia. He was like 70 years old. He wasn't in a wheelchair, but he had walkers and all kinds of other aids. We actually had to toilet him. And some of the things that Jose's talking about, we actually had to do for him. And another, I think he was another, I think it was 16 was the other one that was in our house at the same time. But they're both complex needs. And that I had a question, Jose. You'd mentioned when you first got hurt that about the home care part of it. Heather and I are used to waiting lists. Did you have to wait long to even get a home care aid after your injury? Was there a gap in time? I don't know how that works.
Well, thankfully, this was back in 1995. I've been injured a long time. And when I was in the rehab facility, I was there for roughly 3 months. So even if there was a waiting list, they applied for home care well before I was ready to go home.
That is the beauty of it. When I was in long-term care, what I realized was, just like you said, when we wanted to discharge somebody, that was part of our plan to get them out of the hospital or out of rehab or wherever they were, and keep them out of those long-term care beds, the nursing home beds. And you're right. It used to be way easier, actually. You would apply and some agencies would pick you up. But now if you're looking for traditional home care and you have complex needs, if you need more than 12 hours a week, it's going to be really, really hard to find an agency that will pick you up. CDPAP isn't easy to get. Like, I feel like that's one misconception out there, and I really want to make sure we drive that home. We not only have to have a disability, and that's why we have Medicaid. So we have to have Medicaid based on our disability. We also have to have a doctor who's going to write medical orders for us to receive the service. And then in my case, and you can tell us what they do in New York City, but a county nurse comes to my house once a year. And he really very thoroughly, I'm talking over an hour of time going through every single line. And we're talking about every medication, every single need that my daughter has. And even though for her needs probably are going to be pretty consistent, maybe she'll develop something new that she needs help with, but basically she has a lifelong disability. And that kind of care is always going to be part of the equation. We still have to go through that process. And then the caregivers who are working with us, it's not hard to get cleared. I think you need a physical. You need to show that you've had your childhood vaccine, specifically your MMR. You have to show you don't have tuberculosis. And then you could start, right? You don't have to do the fingerprinting and some of the things that are really bureaucratic and they take a long time that you'll find with other services. But it isn't easy. I tell people all the time, CDPAP is my saving grace for our family, but it's not because it makes life easy. It just makes it less hard. And this is a perfect point to maybe describe what's going on with the governor in New York State and what her perception of this program is and what she's done recently. Is that something you want to hop into, Jose? I could go on for hours, but I would love to hear your side of it.
I want to go back a little bit and say just receiving home care services in general aren't easy. When I was paralyzed, yes, when I got out of the rehab, I did get home care services, but a year later, someone from HRA came into my house and basically told me, when I got out of the hospital, I was receiving 12 hours. So 12 hours during the day, 12 hours at night for 7 days a week. When the HRA worker came into my home, he was like, you know something, I'm going to change that. I'm going to authorize you for 24-hour live-in services. And that's it. I was like, I'm 16 years old. I want to live my life. I want to go to school. I don't want, some stranger coming into my house and living with me, basically sleeping in the same room.
Wow. Yeah. Can you imagine? I mean, that's really a lot to ask of a 16-year-old.
Well, it got worse because when I refused, the HRA worker said, you need to sign these papers or I'm going to place you into a nursing home. He literally said, I would prefer to place you in a nursing home than pay for 2 12-hour shifts for you.
Wow.
So for the next, I think 10 years, I had a 24-hour live-in case until I learned the rules and regulations and educated myself about what I rightfully deserved as a person with a disability and a person with a high-level disability.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a misconception that home care services in general are easy to receive, and that's not the case.
No, absolutely not. That's why we have so many people stuck in nursing homes and rehab centers, right? Because traditional home care is tough.
So, it seems to be the easy target. It's people with disabilities, it's minority women, majority who are doing the care work. And it's an easy target. No one is going to raise their arms up and say, oh my God, you're attacking a different class. It's the minority women, people with disabilities. We can attack them. We can cut wages and we can cut hours and no one is going to make a big deal out of it. But here we are making a big deal out of it because the governor wants to dismantle the program that has saved so many lives. It has kept individuals like me out of nursing homes. And I would not have been able to be successful without the program. My last aide, Fausto, he was with me for roughly 12 years. He was with me right after I finished college. Then I got my first job. I ended up getting my license, got my second job, went to Washington, D.C. and advocated a few times. He went to Albany and ultimately died at the beginning of the pandemic making minimum wage to a state that didn't even consider them essential, and they never corrected that designation. When they said only essential workers are to go out, they never mentioned home care workers, and they left it to the agencies and the consumers, like myself, to let them know you are essential, instead of the government coming out and saying that you're essential. And here we are in 2024. Governor Hochul is again dismantling and attacking the program and devaluing not only our home care workers, but as a result, devaluing the consumers that use it, like myself and your daughter.
Yeah, exactly. Because if we were a priority, then the people who cared for us would be a priority too. And you talked about the state not recognizing direct support workers, professionals, DSPs, CNAs, all these caregivers as an actual occupation. And I want people to just pause for a moment and think about that. Like, the IRS does not have an occupational code for this working class of people. And that might not seem like a big deal, but it is, because then there aren't rules and there aren't oversight. So the home care workers that were coming in and out of homes during COVID, if you were working in a group home, you would get your PPE, you would get your guidance, you would have support, you would know what your duties were, and you would also know what safeguards were in place. But for this entire 250,000 people who were confined in their homes, some of them without any natural supports, their workers believed the news when they said you're not allowed to leave your house, and people got sick. And people got sick from COVID, but people also just got sick because their home care workers couldn't get to them. And that was a really scary scenario that shined a lot of light on this. And you would think after something like that, New York State would have looked at the program more closely and added in more safeguards. But they would only do that if we were a priority. And I just don't feel like we are. And I think about it all the time. And Steve and I were talking, is it because they think we don't vote? I don't know what it is.
I can't speak for, the entire Democratic Party, but right now it seems that, they are kind of reaching out for the disability vote, except for our governor right now. She says that, she's wants the program to take care of the people that it was intended for. But everyone in the program right now qualified under the rules and regulations that the Department of Health set forth. There's no one in the program fraudulently, as she claims, and no one is in the program making $37 an hour, as she claims. It's just incredible to me to think that our elected officials can make these claims and not back them up with any type of facts.
Mm-hmm. There's no proof. When you look at the Attorney General and you look at how many investigations have happened, it's a handful. And this program's been around for decades. So that tells me if we were really worried about fraud, there'd be a lot of investigations. And if she doesn't like an ad that she saw on TikTok, if she feels like that was deceptive, go after that company. But also think about your source. TikTok is known for scams. That is not a platform where I find my reliable information that I'm going to make a policy for an entire state on. So I am just as frustrated as you, because you would think that our governor, she can't know everything about everything, but she has her central staff, and they're supposed to be the researchers, the scientists, the doctors, the lawyers. They're supposed to know the laws. They're supposed to know what is really critical for the people in New York State. Where are we going wrong? Because they're like missing this group. And for an audience, there's 250,000 people in this home care program. There's at least 300,000 caregivers. I mean, my daughter has 8 caregivers. I'm sure most people have at least 1 or 2. So I'm thinking, really, we're like 500,000 to 1 million people this directly impacts. We're not a small segment of the population. And I think that it's hard. And Steve, you talk to officials all the time. You get in offices that some people don't have, a lobbyist can't get in the same offices that you get into. So what do you think is going on here, just from your perspective? Me and Jose are in it, like we are in it emotionally, but you have a little bit of distance. What's your perspective on this?
Jose, I had a question on the numbers. Heather and I both work in nonprofits in a variety of different ways. I work with them all the time, and what I find is sometimes these numbers are skewed. Do you think the governor thinks that there's less people in CDPAP receiving services than the number Heather just quoted, and she doesn't think it's a big deal?
No, I think she knows that there's this. The number is correct. I just think that she's being advised wrong. She is being told that switching from the local businesses, the local FIs, to this one gigantic state FI, that it's going to save money. But she's just transferring one problem to another problem and putting many local New York businesses and their employees on unemployment, closing the businesses and putting their employees out of business, while risking the lives of individuals with disabilities and seniors, because the transfer of 250,000 consumers and their PAs, which can be well above 300,000, is not going to go smoothly. It was tried in Pennsylvania and in Massachusetts. And for example, in Massachusetts, they transferred 50,000 consumers from 2 agencies, and there was a lot of problems. Mm-hmm. In New York, we're transferring, and in Massachusetts, they had 8 months to do it, and they still had problems. New York has 6 months to transfer 250,000 consumers plus their PAs, and they're expecting it to go smoothly, without any hiccups, without any of the PAs deciding that they're going to leave the industry. I'm going to have some very difficult conversations with my PAs if this goes through. And one of them being, are you going to continue to work for me, making less than what you're making now?
Because that's what we're worried about, right? I mean, besides the wage. So there's 600 local companies right now, and they're called FIs, fiscal intermediaries. And this is the company that you go to. You probably heard a commercial sometimes. You call them, you say, I need help. They walk you through the process. They help clear your people. You get to know your FI. I mean, for me, I can text the owner of the company. I can text the person who manages my case. I can let them know when there's somebody new who wants to start being a caregiver for Devin. We have a relationship. And the idea that we would take those 600 companies that are local, they're New Yorkers, and we'd shut them down is upsetting. But then when you think of the criteria that she has set for the new, in her RFP, so her request for proposals, or whatever that stands for, it's out right now. So they're looking for the company. And like you said, other places took a year, some took 8 months, and they had a hard time. We're expediting our timeline. We're rushing it. And we're going to make it so only an out-of-state corporation can take this multi-billion-dollar contract. Why? Why would she want to take billions of dollars and move them out of state? Why would she want to hand them to a big business instead of the local companies that have already represented us and supported us?
Heather, I've owned businesses before, and I'll tell you what, you have to have competition. You can't just have one person or one company controlling everything. I actually think that's going to probably create a better opportunity for fraud.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And how does it save money if the same number of people qualify? The only way they save money is if people can't make the transition, or this new company pays us less and does less for us. If they're a for-profit, what benefit is it to them? We can't choose someone else. The governor's created a monopoly. Our only choice is whoever she picks. and I shouldn't say she because she doesn't get to pick it. The Department of Health will review the applications, people who are saying that they want to take on this huge undertaking. And the thing too, Jose, and maybe you can comment on this a little bit, is when the governor comes up with her budget, she hands it out to the Senate and the Assembly, and then they decide what they're going to do with it. And you might hear that one House budgets come out. That's like the Senate comes up with their version. Okay, Governor Hochul, this is what you want. This is what we want. And then the Assembly does it too. I was so relieved when the one House budgets came out because the Senate and the Assembly, all our elected officials said, don't touch CDPAP. They protected it. They knew how important it was, but she completely disregarded the one House budgets. And this is really backroom deals. You know, she pulled a few people aside, and now we have this plan that she's even blocked the comptroller from reviewing. Everybody hear me say that. The comptroller is the one who looks at a contract and makes sure we're on the up and up. That, you know, that we're not doing things that are shady or not fiscally responsible. And Hochul has made it so our comptroller can't even look at the contract for the statewide corporation. And we have to ask, why? Why are we saying that this program that serves all these people doesn't deserve the same safeguards and follow the same rules as everything else? Why don't we matter? Like, why are we being treated differently? Because I can't picture any other segment of the population going through it in this way.
It's interesting that you say that because she's saying that the program is full of fraud, but she's setting it up for fraud by not allowing the comptroller to really review it and, you know, make sure that everything is on the up and up, and New York is using its money wisely. So yeah, it makes no sense on why she's doing this. Instead of coming to the table and speaking with the stakeholders, you know, bringing the companies in, bringing consumers like me, you as a designated representative, and talk about real solutions on how to save money and make the Medicaid dollars count. Mm-hmm. She decided to make these backroom deals and, you know, completely devastate the program. And we're hoping that it doesn't go through.
Because basically she's the only one that can slam on the brakes right now. Maybe the Department of Health can say, hey, we don't have the bandwidth to do this. But so far they haven't. But really, this undertaking, they will be liable for all the people and all the harm that can come to them. So I would be really nervous if I was the Department of Health. Because guess what? People aren't going to sue the governor. They're going to sue the department that hired the corporation and oversees them. And that will be ugly. And that will take years to resolve in court. But I do know that some of those local companies, some of the FIs, have started legal action. And I applaud them because they're spending a lot of money on lawyers to protect their businesses and protect the people who need home care. So I respect them for putting in the good fight, but man, we shouldn't have to fight this hard, I wouldn't think. And Steve, if we had 5 minutes with the governor, what should we say? People always say all the time, like, if you could get 5 minutes with her, what would you say? I'll have both of you answer that question.
Yeah, look, if I was going to be a part of that, if I were able to pull that off, Heather, I would absolutely get a hold of Jose and have him right next to me. Mm-hmm. Because I think they need to hear the story straight out of somebody that's what her decision is affecting. And I think that's more important than anything. And like I said, I think that's important that these stories get told, and the stories be told by the people or who, like what I do, where I'm a guardian or caregiver of others, that we are in the room too. Too many times I think that other people are at the table and not the ones that matter. And then decisions get made and we're all not at the table. So
right.
Go ahead, Jose.
So yes, I'm going to make it personal because it's personally affects me. I would ask her, why don't I matter? Why do people with disabilities and seniors don't matter? We are attacked constantly, and it weighs on me because shit, I've worked my butt off to get to where I'm at. And my life is like living on a tightrope. Any decision that comes from Albany can tip that and knock me off of that tightrope. I can lose everything I have accomplished, everything that I have, all because an elected official or a group of elected officials decided that my life has a cost to it and it does not align with their budget. So I can be put in an institution, I can lose my life, and I would just fade away. So why don't I matter? Why not speak to me and find real solutions instead of, you know, talking to just experts and saying, let's just dismantle the program and, you know, raise from the ashes, and whoever gets burned gets burned. And that's my fear, is that a lot of people with disabilities and seniors are going to end up in nursing facilities and be housed for years, or in the most extreme cases, die.
Absolutely, because hospitals do their best to do a safe discharge. And sometimes people are desperate to get out of that situation. Nobody wants to grow up in a hospital. You know, that's not anybody's dream. You don't have a baby and hope they live in a hospital, a clinical setting with call bells going off and the PA system blaring and the elevator bells dinging all night long. Nobody dreams of that for their kids. So that's an important part. And when you think about the people who use CDPAP, this could be your neighbor. This could be somebody who gets in a car accident and one day they're fine and the next day they're not. Does that mean they shouldn't live at home with their family? I mean, you have a partner at home. You guys have a baby. You both work. CDPAP is what keeps you guys in the community. And I don't think that's really appreciated. We think, oh, it's for old people with dementia or it's for somebody who had a stroke. And yes, we are caring for people in that way, and it gives them dignity. They can stay in their house that they've been in their whole life. They don't have to get rid of their knickknacks. They don't have to get rid of their prized possessions. It doesn't cost their family all the money they ever made, right? Nursing homes are so expensive. We're talking like $15,000, $20,000 a month, easy. That's like the base price for a nursing home placement.
And I don't have to set up an appointment to see my son at a nursing facility.
Right, because that's a scary place to bring kids. And I say that because I worked in one. You know, I know it was a 500-bed facility. It was big. It was its own entity, but that's not a place for kids. And we had a pediatric wing. I need people to hear me say that too. There are kids growing up in nursing homes because New York State's not sure how to take care of them in their home. CDPAP is a viable option. And we also have a bill out right now for complex care where parents are already doing a lot of the nursing duties that their children need. And to find a nurse is even harder than finding an aide to come to your house, okay? So that bill would allow parents to act as a nurse and to get paid, because guess what? If you're caregiving the whole day and all night to keep your child healthy and safe, you can't have normal employment. And that's the other part of CDPAP we should touch on before we close up, is there are families that have dedicated caregivers. Doris, who's local to me in Rochester, she worked with Congressman Joe Morelli, and they made sure the parents could become paid caregivers when their children were adults. And it's not because Doris wants to get paid to help her daughter. That's not why. It's because she has bills. And if she can't work a normal job, how will she keep Sarah in her home? How will she keep the lights on and make sure Sarah has the medicine that she needs and that they have a house and a car and all the things that they need? So that's a whole nother group of people that CDPAP serves. but New York State can't. 75% of people with disabilities with an IDD, so that's like a lifelong disability, somebody who's born with an intellectual or developmental disability, 75% of that population lives with their aging parents because they don't have another choice. And that's a whole nother show, but it just shows you if you take away the one program right now that's serving that group of people and you pay them like $17 to $20 an hour. Okay, guys, that's not a lot of money. Those are the people that saved my daughter's life when she stops breathing. They're the ones that administer her life-saving medication. They aren't making, like you said, Jose, $37 an hour, not even close. But if we switch to that one statewide corporation, if she outsources that to a big business, who knows what they're going to make each, an hour. And their PTO that they accrued, it's gone. If they're getting health insurance right now through their FI, we don't know what they're going to replace it with. If they're really trying to save money, I really think the personal attendants are the ones that are going to get screwed on this. And I think you're right. We're going to have really hard conversations with the people in our houses. I don't even want to think about it. Like, I don't want to think about it because I have moms that work with me and this is how they put food on their table and how they pay their bills. So in other places, when they did this, pay was disrupted for weeks, sometimes months. People weren't getting paid. And you're right, caregivers quit because everybody has bills to pay. They might really care about us, but they're not going to keep doing this work, this hard work for free. And maybe that's what I don't know. She can't want that to happen.
Our caregivers have families as well. They have bills to pay. Because the monopoly couldn't pay them, doesn't mean that their rent isn't due, their light isn't due, their phone bills isn't due. And on top of that, how they're going to get their transportation to and from work. So, yeah, this is not going to be good.
No, I think 50% of people in this profession qualify for government assistance already. So we're talking about people who are really, a lot of them living paycheck to paycheck. And when you disrupt someone's pay that's in that situation, the ripple effect is going to be pretty profound. I would love to talk about some of the people who are standing up for us, okay? Because even though we've talked a lot of the doom and gloom, let's talk about the advocacy because we've done some really cool things that are different. Steve and I say this all the time too, that traditional advocacy isn't working. Going down to Albany with our signs, demanding to meet with the governor. We had 12 individuals, self-advocates, some of them that I knew that slept overnight in the Capitol building, demanding to see the governor. It didn't work. Like, if we're being honest, the phone calls, the emails, the rallies, it didn't produce the results we wanted. So we were trying different things. We're doing media campaigns and want to tell them a little bit about the Twitter storm because I am not a Twitter user. But I participated and it was fun. It was a different way to go about spreading awareness and get attention.
So Twitter, affectionately known as X now, we decided to do what we call a Twitter storm. We waited for Governor Hochul to speak at the Democratic National Convention. And as she was speaking and before, we as a group sent out hundreds of tweets. And we tagged the Democratic National Convention and Protect Home Care to let the world know that we're doing this and we don't want this to happen. So it was a great event, and thank you for participating. I want to thank the people who participated as well. It was awesome, and hopefully she got the message.
I think she did. I mean, I've said this before, but when she got out on stage, she was a little flustered. She looked a little rattled, and I think she's a woman that likes positive press, and she likes her poll numbers to be up. And right now, she doesn't have that. People are kind of losing faith in this. They're saying, man, one more time, big business is coming before the people who elected you. So U.S. Congressman Mark Molinaro has spoken up, and that's really amazing to have somebody at the federal level swinging for us. And he actually went on to say, like, Governor Hochul had called it a racket, CDPAP, and he said she was looking for a racket, she should look in the mirror. And that he also told her she needed to apologize. And then you think of the health committee, what is it, Senator Gustavo Rivera, he's also spoken out. But right when I was driving in today, I got a text saying that 25 senators came together and sent a letter saying that they wanted this to change. That's impressive.
Senator Mannion. Senator Mannion and I think 27 other senators.
Oh, good. Okay.
Sent a letter to the federal CMS, Center of Medicaid, asking that they review this and stop this from happening. So it's definitely a bipartisan thing. It's not a, partisan thing, like one party versus another. This is lives at stake. This has nothing to do with party lines. And we just want this to go away.
Yeah.
This is bad for all of us.
And you're right. It's not a Republican or Democratic thing at all at this point, because anyone could need a caregiver at some point in their life. Nobody's above that.
Well, we like to say that admission into the disability community is absolutely free. And you're all welcome to join us. All you need to do is have some kind of accident or ailment, and it's free. And we're welcoming. We're a welcoming group.
There you go. Totally inclusive. Oh my goodness. So we've covered a lot of different things, and we're coming up on the end of the show today. And we definitely will circle back, because I think that there's going to be some new developments. I hope soon. But Steve, is there anything else you want to add right now before we close out?
No, look, I know a lot of times this goes back to money and the financial part of it, and it shouldn't. Like Jose said, these are people's lives. And it's not just their lives, it's their families' lives who have to live it with them. And look, I always say, and I've told you this, Heather, if somebody wants to look for cost savings, they should come to my house, because I'm involved with a lot of nonprofits, and I see a lot of waste in a lot of different areas that doesn't affect the consumers that they're serving. And whether it's bloated salaries way up, or top heavy administrations in some of these places, I would rather see the money go to make sure something like this never happens to Jose.
And if we think about it too, the numbers, the math, it doesn't add up, because if we just thought about the 600 businesses that she's going to shut down with this plan, all of those employees go on to unemployment, and then they can get their marketplace health insurance, right? And that all costs us money. That completely does. And then you think of the consumers, and Jose, you're right. They're going to get sick. If your caregivers quit because they're not getting paid, or you can't make the transition because 250,000 people are ahead of you, how in the world will you get the care that you need? If you're comfortable, Jose, could you tell us some of the things that your home care workers do? Like what it would look like for you? You have a baby at home. I can't imagine.
So my day starts when I'm in bed. I can't move. So my aide comes in and switches out my urine bag, because I have a larger one that I sleep at night with. He puts a leg bag on that goes strapped to my leg, dresses me, transfers me into the chair. Then I go into the bathroom, brush, wash up a little bit, and start my day. Then the cleaning, the cooking at night. It's showering, toileting, and overnight I have to do the turning of position to prevent pressure sores. He cares as much for me as he cares for my child. And I find that amazing, and it's not the case with or like traditional home care. They probably wouldn't even be able to assist me in that.
Mm-hmm.
It's
He's
a
an
completely
extension
different
of you. It's like your team, an absolute team.
Well, I'm going to say this. I want to honor all of the PAs that are out there. I know how difficult your job is. I know how undervalued you are by the system. And just know that individuals like me, Heather, and everyone that utilizes a PA in the system, we care about you and we're here for you. My PA was with me for 12 years, was more important to me than my father was. He was with me for some of the most critical moments in my life. And I will continue to do this fight, not only for myself, because I need the care, but for you, because you guys matter as much as I do. And if the government uplifts you, they uplift the community. So
Thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, this all boils down to New York State not caring about the people who care about us. And that's so heavy. And I think that the caregivers deserve that. And think about like when you first had your injury. I'm sure there was anger. I think people who have dementia and they feel their clarity slipping, there's behaviors. I mean, CDPAP workers are dealing with things that most people would walk away from. But every day they get on the bus or they drive to your house and they show up. And I have to give them credit because that's a special kind of person. And it's not a position that you're, going to make big bucks with, but you make a difference. And we're so grateful for everybody who's supporting this fight, but also who's giving us the chance to talk about it and are listening to us for the first time in a while. The media is very, very receptive to our stories. They're publishing articles. We're on the news every night. And there's a reason for that. They see the human part of this. New York State's known for Willowbrook. That's a horrible thing to be known for. And we've had 50 years to figure this out. And we were really making progress for a while. But now we had the anniversary of the Olmstead decision and the anniversary of ADA law. And instead of celebrating those anniversaries, we have a governor who's undermining them. And that's the kind of poison that, they say it poisons the well. Like a policy like that isn't just one little thing. It's going to spread because if this can happen to CDPAP, this can happen to any program that serves people and some of our more vulnerable community members. And how we treat people, that's the character that we have. And I think if New York State really wants to be a leader in disability rights, if we want to reclaim that position, we need to halt the plan. We need to listen to the stakeholders and come up with a solution that's fiscally responsible. We need the comptroller to be involved. Let's not take away our safeguards because we deserve them too. So I appreciate you coming today, Jose. This has been a great discussion. And like I said, I'm sure we'll have a part 2. And I hope it's for a celebration. We deserve that, hopefully. If nothing else. Yeah.
If anyone wants to find out more information about the campaign to end this, they can go over to the Alliance to Protect Home Care website. You'll see the ads that we put together. One of them includes Heather and her daughter Devin. They did a great job. Send your senators or your elected officials a message saying that this is not good.
Thank you for joining us today. And for our audience, this is, a grassroots effort, CDPAP, but also me and Steve. This podcast is something that we're personally investing our time and resources into because we feel like these discussions are really needed. And we see all the comments on our Facebook page, and we appreciate every time somebody subscribes to our YouTube channel because that's what keeps us going. So please like this when it is released and comment, share, subscribe to our channel. All of those things matter and will keep us doing what we're doing. Until next time.